Hello there, my very good friends. On today's wrestling news, we're going to tell you who Edge is going to be facing at WrestleMania 37.
Sheamus turns on Drew McIntyre on last night's Monday Night Raw.
I've got the real reason that Jey Uso missed Royal Rumble 2021.
And I'll tell you about the backstage mood in WWE following the Royal Rumble. I'm Adam Wilborn.
I'm Andy Murray.
And this is the news.
Okay, so let's kick things off by talking about Edge. Edward J. He was on last night's episode of Raw, and he had an in-ring confrontation with Drew McIntyre after winning the 2021 Royal Rumble, of course. Edge, he was kind of keeping his cards a little bit close to his chest. He didn't reveal who he was going to challenge at WrestleMania 37, but he said to Drew, "You've got a target on your back, pal, and listen, no matter who I face, I'm leaving with the belt," which sets something up that Adam's going to talk about in a couple of minutes. But he didn't reveal officially who he was going to face at WrestleMania 37. It was then announced a while later that he's going to be on SmackDown this week. Edge is going to show up, presumably, to have a confrontation with the Tribal Chief, Roman Reigns, the Universal Champion, who he could theoretically face at Mania as well. Who's he going to pick? Roman Reigns. He's going to face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 37. That's the current plan that WWE have. This is a report coming to us. It's Dave Meltzer in the Figure 4 Online / Wrestling Observer daily update, saying that one of the planned main events for the show, night 1, night 2, who knows, is going to be Reigns versus Edge. There's no word on when that'll be announced, although you'd imagine that Reigns is probably going to have like at least one more hurdle to leap before getting there. There's 2 pay-per-views to go. There's Elimination Chamber and there's Fastlane. Potentially you need matches for Reigns on those. But Edge versus Reigns is a really interesting route to go down. I don't think it's something that a lot of people had considered before this. We all assumed that if Edge was going to win the Rumble, he would challenge Drew, and that would be really cool. But now, when you consider this option for Reigns, we were talking about, I don't know, Daniel Bryan. We were talking about The Rock in Fantasyland that we lived in for a while. Both of us included. Love that suggestion. Brock Lesnar, maybe. Other people. But Edge, even though it was right there in front of us, was something that wasn't discussed a whole lot. I think it's interesting. I think Edge is really sympathetic in WWE. It was a great babyface showing from him in the Royal Rumble, and that makes him a natural fit to face the Tribal Chief. You could even argue that Edge doesn't need to beat Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. That, you know, Edge would be a great guy for Reigns to just beat up really viciously and look like the biggest bastard of all time. So we'll see what happens, but for now, that's the plan.
Yeah, and credit to WhatCulture Wrestling's very own Phil Chambers, who pretty much called this in the immediate aftermath of the Royal Rumble. I was there with him saying, oh, you know, how are they going to set up Drew and Edge? Because obviously Edge has been on Raw for them at the time since he's been back, and it's going to be difficult. It's face versus face, although we know Edge can play a brilliant heel, of course, but it's a hard turn to try and have to make with all the good feeling around him winning the Rumble from number 1 after all, and then turning Drew heel would kind of just undercut everything they'd done with him. And Phil was just there like, yeah, just have him face Roman, do spear versus spear. It's very much in WWE's handbook, I suppose, that. And like you say, Andy, as much as it would be a fairy tale story for Edge to, well, he said to win back the title he's never lost. I don't think we're going to have the World Heavyweight Championship big gold belt coming back, but still. As much as it'd be a fairy tale story, it would also really develop the aura that has burst back around Roman Reigns since he returned for the SummerSlam main event, etc. And like I've seen a lot of people suggesting this. You could potentially have Roman hold that belt until next WrestleMania, when you finally have someone overcome those odds, because you can just have people keep constantly going up against him, and then it getting bigger and bigger, and the whole, oh bloody hell, who's going to stop him now sort of thing is fascinating. Edge versus Drew would have been great. I think Edge versus Roman Reigns is going to be spectacular as well. And credit to WWE, like, as much as this has come out through Meltzer, obviously, they're playing their cards close to the chest, and it's going to pop a rating. Like, yeah. It'll be intriguing to see what they did for last night's post-Royal Rumble Raw. I know last year it didn't really do that much of a spike, but still, it's the Raw after the Royal Rumble. And then if you think about, like, advertising SmackDown, because Edge hasn't said, I'm not going to face you, Drew, and just said he's going to show up on SmackDown instead, I think that's going to do a big number as well. And, in the interim, I'd have Roman destroy everyone in the Elimination Chamber. You can fill it with Jey Uso to try and be on his side, maybe even Jimmy Uso, who you don't know whose loyalty he's got, and then you can chuck in your Shinsuke Nakamura's, and let's be honest, because it's WWE, probably Kevin Owens yet again. But I'm fascinated, and I just got a real buzz around WWE. I think the Royal Rumble sort of reset a lot of people's here we go with WWE counters, and we're on the road to WrestleMania. Can you feel that excitement? And I'll talk about that in a minute. Speaking of which, on last night's Monday Night Raw, off the back of what Andy was talking about there with Edge and Drew McIntyre going back and forth, Sheamus come out and said, "What's going on, fella?" Said, don't you talk about my friend like that. And then in the midst of all this, as Edge said, I'm going to wait to make my decision, I'm the ultimate opportunist, etc., etc. As he was walking to the back, Drew McIntyre turned around, bro kick, Sheamus has done it, he's finally turned heel, he's attacked his best friend. This has been teased and forecast from, November last year, it feels like. But here we are. No word as to when the WWE Championship match will happen. Feel free to speculate on that in the comment section below, but it is going to be happening. Drew McIntyre confirmed as much in an interview afterwards. But yeah, great. Sheamus versus Drew McIntyre. Good stuff. I can't complain.
Yeah. It's something we've been saying for months. We've been looking forward to this pairing. They've got history. Obviously, they're both very, very good, hard-hitting professional wrestlers. The storyline makes sense. You've got, 2 pay-per-views before Mania that you realistically need to fill up with title matches. Sheamus is a great guy to put in that spotlight. He's been playing the tweener recently. He was pretty much a full-on babyface on last week's episode of SmackDown, but he swings back and forth. Sheamus is a complicated guy with complicated pro wrestling alignments, but he's a full-on heel now, going up against Drew. I think that'll be a really cool match. The Claymore versus the Brogue Kick. Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it, and I thought the turn last night was very well done.
Tell you what they need to do, Andy. You remember on SmackDown when they had the Brogue Kick versus the KO Punch, and they had that machine that managed how hard it was? Get that back. And also, this is a reminder for everyone, if you haven't said thank you to someone who got you a nice present for Christmas, do it, otherwise they'll Brogue Kick your head off your shoulders.
There you go. What an ultimatum. You have no choice. Jey Uso, why wasn't he at Royal Rumble 2021? He was advertised for the match. He was on promotional materials as close to the event as the day of the goddamn show, but he wasn't there. He hasn't been on SmackDown, in fact, since the 15th of January when he lost to Shinsuke Nakamura. What's going on with Jey Uso? Report here, Dave Meltzer, Wrestling Observer, saying that Jey missed the Royal Rumble because he was not medically cleared to compete. There's currently no word on what's going on with him medically or when he'll be back, but he's not medically cleared to be there. That's why he didn't help Roman beat Kevin Owens. Roman beat Kevin Owens pretty much on his own, with the help of a golf cart, of course. But yeah, there's not much more to it than that. Jey could potentially, who knows when he'll be back, who knows when he'll return. His brother, obviously, Jimmy, has been injured since WrestleMania last year. Both Usos out of the picture for now. Hope that whatever's going on with Jey isn't serious and that we see him again soon. And I hope that Jimmy is close to recovering as well.
Yeah, get well soon, Jey Uso. It's a shame he wasn't involved in the Royal Rumble match. I thought it was a nice story if you could have included him in that rather than just have him involved in the Kevin Owens match. And if they are around the same time in terms of predictions coming back, I don't know exactly the situation with Jimmy Uso. I'd bring them back together now as just like oh god, the stable around Roman Reigns has now added Jimmy Uso, and they just look even more unstoppable over there, which is just again adding to that aura as Edge faces him at WrestleMania. And let's talk about the mood in WWE backstage as we conclude here off the back of the Royal Rumble. WrestleVotes tweeting about this. Some good stories coming off the back of WrestleVotes. They are very good with this sort of thing, and basically saying that the vibe last night was the most upbeat locker room the source they've got has seen in a long time. Now, of course, this usually happens around this time of year because, WWE seemingly start to try. But the source also went on to say that the road to WrestleMania has real meaning this year, serving as a small light at the end of a dark tunnel. Yeah, look, it's been a crap time for everyone with the ongoing global bastard. But I think just generally, if you ask people in the world, you're looking forward to April? Yeah, because we feel like we are closer to some sort of solution here. And obviously with WrestleMania having fans in attendance, that's a real thing to shoot for. And great to hear that the mood is improving backstage in WWE, because we so often, Andy, report it's all crap.
Yeah. I mean, it's reflective of the fan response to the Royal Rumble, which was a very good pay-per-view with popular winners that people wanted to see prosper. It's a really good combo. So it's nice to hear that that's reflecting backstage. You have the added hope of maybe fans returning for WrestleMania 37, which is on the cards, which is planned. Let's hope that there's just not a twist. Let's hope that the global bastard is not a total bastard, and we actually get that and it's safe. And it's done in as controlled a way as possible, and everyone's happy. And it's not like that Chris Jericho biker rally where bad stuff happened. Hope it works out. Hope it's good.
Exactly. In the meantime, not to preach, but just stay safe, everyone, and wear a mask. Okay, let's move on to your Twitter questions. At WhatCulture WWE, Lord KPS starts us off. He says, hope you guys are well rested after a hectic Royal Rumble. Yes, we had a long sleep, not together, me and Andy off the pay-per-view. And Lord KPS says, I love the pay-per-view, but constant camera cuts every microsecond really affected some big moments in almost every match. Is it about time WWE took a serious look at this? What do you think? Andy, I've got to say, the fact that they missed another spear, Kevin Dunn, they missed Bayley's elimination, they kept inexplicably when there was like 4 people left. I know the tradition of like the wide shot when it's like, all right, we're down to the final 4 or final 3 or whatever it may be, but I don't need to see that. Honestly, it's real. I know I don't really experience it that much because I sort of speed watch Monday Night Raw, but my word, it's so annoying on pay-per-views.
Yeah.
It's getting to be too much, and I know fans that are just like, I'm almost done with this now.
Yeah, it's been too much for about a decade. It's horrible stuff. It's like the controls are being hammered by some kid who's eating about 7 gallons of Skittles. It's constant, it's numbing. It does my head in sometimes when I really hone in and focus on it. I'm like, Jesus, just focus on something for longer than 2 seconds. It won't hurt you. The focus will be a lot better. It's a long-standing problem. It's one I would love to see them address, and it does make the shows kind of hard to watch at points.
I just can't get over the fact that Kevin Dunn can still think that's a really good idea, that when they like the botches, especially around the Royal Rumble, you think about obviously missing Edge's first spear back in the ring
that was bad,
on Dolph Ziggler because they wanted to show some crowd reaction. You think about them going, let's show Roman's face instead of AJ Styles Tron a few years ago. And then last night me and Phil were just like, wait, has Bayley been eliminated? Because they missed that because they were showing something else. And I don't know, it just feels like work out what spots you want to show. And you know what? If we don't have a camera cut for a minute because you're waiting for a spot, that's okay. Because I won't remember the 58 seconds that lead up to it. I'll remember the spot. Jesus, calm down. Like you say, Kevin Dunn. Take a chill pill. Okay, second question today comes from EST on Twitter. He says, morning fellas, what are your thoughts on WWE retiring the women's tag team titles and introducing mid-card titles as instead? As a woman, unless you're in the world title picture, you aren't doing anything much. And congratulations to Lana and Naomi, who are the new #1 contenders off the back of Raw, by the way.
I don't necessarily think the mid-card titles is a solution to that problem. I think the solution is just give people more stories. Just to have some more individual feuds out with the title programs. I don't necessarily think you need a belt for that. And I think another solution is to just form more proper women's tag teams rather than these thrown together teams that we see. Build people up, put them back together, let them have little runs and stuff. So, you could conceivably do that, but I kind of like the idea of the women's tag team championships traveling around the brands and stuff. But we need more established groups, and we do need to actually travel around the brands a little bit more as well.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we are on the road to rehabilitation with these tag titles. Shayna and Nia are a good team to have for people to go up against. Lana and Naomi aren't going to win the tag titles. No, you would assume they're just sort of hoyed together again. At least Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke had matching gear, I suppose, last night, but they didn't win. I'd have maybe Caden Carter and Kacy Catanzaro, as I keep talking about, take those titles off Nia Jax as Shayna Baszler's big shock, and then you can have them travel around the brands. And, well, let's go on to the final question because it relates to this. Mindrunner says, can WWE redeem breaking up the, apologies headphone users, Iconics! If they build them from the Royal Rumble to a Riot Squad versus Iconics match at WrestleMania. Andy, I will never forgive the Riot Squad for what they did to Billy Bloody Kay last night.
They could conceivably do that, but I don't think they'll do that. The reunion at the Rumble was kind of teased, but they didn't go for it fully. They kind of gave you a little touch, and the way it was pulled off didn't seem to me like that was something they were going to explore. So, I think putting them back together makes sense, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, I'm biased, so I'm going to say yes, they are going to reunite, and it's going to be a main event of one of the 2 nights at WrestleMania.
Wow.
One night will be Edge versus Roman Reigns, the other night will be the Iconics versus the Riot Squad, rather than, well, the other main event should obviously be Bianca Belair versus whoever she chooses out of, well, you would assume Sasha Banks, but who knows?
So.
That's just giving everything to SmackDown, I realise, with the Royal Rumble, but still, it's the better brand. Okay, let's move on to today's, and finally, and a big shout out to, well, just a legend, Big E, who has heard the calls for this already online and tweeted accordingly, tweeting a photo overnight of him as Intercontinental Champion back in the day, holding his hand out to Christian, who I believe many years ago won a number 1 contenders match to get a shot at that IC title. Of course, all the concussion issues led to him going away. He's now apparently, fantastic news this, going to be on a part-time schedule. And this seems to suggest, Andy, that Big E, because he's just a bloody top bloke, is going to offer Christian finally that IC championship match. Maybe even this could be a WrestleMania match. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Christian's going to be doing the part-time schedule. Sign me up.
Absolutely. And just everyone be more like Big E, just generally, okay? Because he's just nice, isn't he?
Nice
there we
guy.
go. Right, let us know your thoughts on that and all today's news stories in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. Myself and the Daily Boys reviewing Raw a little bit later on today. Plus, you can let us know your thoughts and your Twitter questions on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. Which there, follow both of us. You can follow Andy Murray at...
You can follow me at Andy H. Murray. The H today stands for Happy Birthday, Brian Cage. I wonder what Taz got that man for his birthday.
God. Wonder how much he eats on his birthday as a treat. his calorie count must be off the scale anyway. I bet it's like The Rock with those bloody massive pancakes. Happy birthday, Brian Cage. Throw a goober over your house to celebrate, I suppose. Follow me on Twitter at Adam Wilburn. Follow us all at What Culture WWE. But for now, my thanks to Andy Murray. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.